So let's go over working with our artboards. To see the extent of the artboard that we're looking at, we can hit Command and 0 just to see the full extent of all of the objects and artwork that we're currently working with. But for now, I want to zoom in on this region. So I can hit the Z key from my zoom tool, and I'll just do a marquee zoom of this area. And then I'll hit the V key to come back to my black arrow tool. So what we're going to learn here is how to create and delete our artboards, edit their position and dimensions, and then finally name and rearrange them within the artboard panel. So as you can see here, we have the artboard tool, which is located over here in the toolbar, and we also have an artboard panel. You could find the artboard panel up here in the window menu by going down to artboard, but it's also located within the docked panel. So right here, it happens to be right next to the layers tab. So right here. And you can see we only have one artboard for this particular file. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom out, Command and -sign, and I'll move this up. And what I want to do is create a few different types of artboards that we can kind of play around with. I want to create kind of a mock business card artboard, a postcard, and maybe a few more icon artboards. To create a new artboard, there's a few ways we can do it. I find the best way is just using the artboard tool. So I'm going to come over here and click on the artboard tool, and I'm going to start with this first one, the business card. I'm going to come right over here to this edge, and right now we have a smart guide lining up the edge of this artboard with our potential new artboard. And I'm just going to click and drag something that's approximate to the dimensions of that business card, and then I'm going to release. So now that I've made that artboard, I can come in here and start to actually modify its dimensions and its position. So if we come up here to the control panel, what we're going to see is all the options associated with this artboard. And we'll kind of go through most of them. So the first thing I want to do is I want to make sure that this artboard is the right size. Now right now it's reading at a width, so W, of 4.4 inches and a height of 2.4 inches. So I want to change that. So right here, I want it to be about 3 inches high and 5 inches wide. I could just start putting in the values for this dimension of the business card, but instead I want to make sure that as I modify this, it's modifying it from this corner, so the upper left corner. So I want that to stay stationary as the rest of this changes in dimension. So that can be found right up here in the control panel. You have kind of like a coordinates box here. So with all of your objects, they usually have a coordinate system that they can grow or shrink from or multiply from. So right now, usually by default, the reference point is set in the center. So I'm going to make sure that my reference point is up here on the upper left. It's a little hard to see. You got to kind of maybe get in a little closer to make sure that you have selected that upper right box. So I went ahead and clicked on that, and now I can come over here and I'm actually going to input the values through my keyboard. So I'll just select this 4.4 inches and I'll hit 5. And since my document is already set up working in inches, I don't have to put the shorthand for inches. All I have to do is press the return key. And there you can see that this changed to 5 inches. Now to make sure that you are actually changing to the right dimensions, you can put on your rulers. So Command R, and I can see if I hover over here next to this edge, I am at 5 inches. I'll go ahead and change the other side. And whenever you're done working with your artboard tool, you want to hit the escape key. So there we have our first artboard made to a custom size. Let's go ahead and create the next artboard. But we're going to do this in a little bit of a different way. So I'm going to go ahead and select my artboard tool again. And instead of creating a new artboard, I'm just going to copy this current artboard that I have right here. To do that, I'm going to hover inside of the artboard and I'm going to hold down on my Alt or Option key. And when I do that, I get a set of double arrows. While holding down, I'm going to click and drag, and this is essentially the new copy of the artboard. I'm going to try to line them up through these smart guides. So you can see a purple line hitting through both of the center of those artboards. So once it's about where I want it, I'm going to release the mouse first, then release the Option key or Alt key. And there we've made our second artboard, and it's a copy of our first. Now I'm going to come back to the coordinates reference point, and I'm going to choose the top center. I know that I want to maintain my 5-inch width, but now I need to make it 7 inches tall, and I want it to grow from this top edge and go down. So I'm going to come over to the height, and I'm going to input 7 and enter. I'll hit my V key to go back to my black arrow. When I did that, it also got out of the artboard tool mode. And as I scroll down, I can see that I have a new artboard at 5x7. I'm going to go ahead and click back on my artboard tool. So right next to our dimensions is our coordinates. So whenever you work on any Illustrator document, you are working within a coordinate system. And right now, it's seeing the coordinates of our center point as 8.6 inches on the x-axis and 14.29 inches on the y. So what I want to do is just shift it over a little bit on the x-axis. Instead of being at 8.16, I'm going to change this to 8.5 inches and hit return. And you can see it moved that artboard over, and now it is lined up with the original artboard. Once I'm done, I'll hit the escape key, and let's create a few more of these. So I want to make these square artboards, maybe as though I was working with icons. So I'll come back to my artboard tool. So I'm going to hover over next to the edge of our business card artboard, and I'll just click and drag and make an approximate square shape and release. Now I can set the dimensions, so I'll make my reference point at the top left hand side, and for these I want to be 2 inches by 2 inches. Alright, so now that I've created that square artboard, I'm going to go ahead and duplicate it just like we did our other one. So I'm going to hover inside the center with the artboard tool. I'm going to hold down on the Alt or Option key, and I'm going to look for those double arrows, and then I'll click and drag, and if my smart guides are on, then it will tell me if these centers are lined up, and I'll actually try to line it up with the other edge of the business card. I'll release the mouse first, and then the Alt or Option key, and then I'll hit Escape. So now we've created all the artboards we needed to create for this exercise. But now we need to try and rename these. By default, as you create artboards, it's just going to assign it a random number based on when it was created. And so we want to be able to control the name of our artboards. So for this first one we made, the business card artboard, I need to go ahead and make sure that that is highlighted. So right now you can see a faint black line around this last artboard we made, highlighted here inside the artboard panel. Now in order to highlight artboards, if I click on, let's say, artboard 7, you can see that the black highlighting line has changed to be around that business card shape that we made. But let's say I wanted to look at the original artboard that we were first working with. If I click on it, it does nothing. But if I click on it one more time, then it shows me the extent of that first artboard. So I'll go ahead and come back to artboard 2. It says artboard 7 on mine. So I'll click once and then click again, and then I'll zoom out just a little bit. Now when I need to rename this, I need to click on it, but I need to click faster than I did to view the artboard. So instead of clicking once and then clicking again, I'm going to double click fast, and that way it'll allow me to rename the artboard. In this case, I'll name it business card. And then when I'm done, I'll click outside of the dialog box, and then I'll move on to my next one. Click once, click again. This is our postcard. I'll double click fast and rename it. And the next one, double click fast, and this was our first icon artboard. Click outside when you're done, and then the last one. Click once, click again, and double click fast, icon 2. Right now they are ordered just based on when I created them, but there might come a time, let's say when I'm saving this as a PDF, that I want the PDF pages, which are the artboards, to display in a certain order. So let's say I want to have the icons displayed first in the PDF. I'm going to go ahead and click on icon 1, and then I'm going to come down here to the arrows inside the artboard panel. This pretty much moves these artboard layers up and down. So I'll move the icon layer up all the way to the top of the stack. I'll do the same thing with icon layer 2, and I think that'll be good. I'll go ahead and double click on my Original Artboard, Layers and Artboards, and I'll scroll down. So the last thing I wanted to show you is being able to put certain guides and marks on your artboards that can be really helpful when you're first starting a project. I'm going to go back to my artboard tool and I'm going to click on the business card artboard. I'm going to come back up to the control panel, and if you look, there's 3 different symbols here giving us guides and marks. I'm going to choose the one in the middle that says show crosshairs, and you can see I get 4 crosshairs all lining up with the center points of the quadrants. And so now that we have those center points, we can now start to put some objects within here. So I'm going to go back to my layers panel, and I'm going to go all the way down to the bottommost layer. It's called exercise template. I'm going to go ahead and unlock this layer temporarily, and that way I can come over to here, and I got to make sure I have the black arrow when I do this. I'm going to choose this first large rectangle right here. I'm going to click on that, and then staying inside the center, I'm going to drag this object where it lines up with these center points on the artboard, and then release. So now I'll do the same thing, but this time I'll use some different marks. I'm going to choose my artboard tool again, and then I'll come over to our postcard artboard, and then I'll come up to the control panel, and this time I'll use this show center mark symbol here on the left. I'll click on that, and then it's hard to see, but there's a small X in the center that marks the center of the artboard. So now that that is marked, I'll hit the V key to get my black arrow, and then I'll come over here and grab this circle. Click once, and then click and drag. And if I'm using my smart guides, you can see that it's trying to line up this circle with other objects. I'm going to go ahead and hover this right on top, and I'm going to try to line up those centers. I'll zoom in a little bit more. Whenever you're using the smart guides, it's always best to be as close as you can get. So there it tells me the center of the circle is on this point or this mark. I'll zoom out a little bit. And so now I can be assured that when I do work on this artboard that this is the dead center of the artboard. Let's try one more type of guide marks on an artboard. So I'll choose my artboard tool again, and this time I'll choose either icon 1 or 2, and then I'll come over to this third marking method. It says show video safe areas. So this would be good for a piece that you might be doing for film or animation. I think it's actually a really good mark for just general margins on an artboard. I'll hit the V key to get my black arrow, and this time I'll grab this octagon. Click once, and then click and drag, and now I'm going to move that right into those margins. I'll zoom in a little bit, and that's pretty good. Okay, so if you're at this point, then your exercise is complete. If that's the case, you want to make sure to save it. I would first do a file save as, and just save it as your last name, so in my case, Bockelman, and underscore exercise 1, and save it as the .ai or Illustrator file. The one you're going to turn into me is going to be a PDF file. So for that, you want to do file and save as, the same method, your last name, first initial, I forgot to tell you that, underscore exercise 1, and instead of an Illustrator file, you're going to save it as Adobe PDF. And you'll get this dialog box. Just change the preset up here from the Illustrator default to smallest file size, and then save.